we have Laura Cooper. Laura Cooper is one of my CLG, right? Otherwise known as the Coaches Leadership Group member. It's a group of leaders around the country that you guys remember when we do the Dominate Listings Summit. Laura was one of the speakers. She's in the group. And Laura is a rock star. And I had Laura come on, one, because I just absolutely love her and respect her. And I learned so much from her, and you guys are going to too. So Laura has 14 years of residential real estate industry experience. She is in the Houston market. She sells over 60 to 70 homes a year. Guess what? On her own without a team. Okay. She's a busy woman. Okay. She just opened up a brand new office. She's a certified mentor. She's a success coach. She's an icon agent, multiple icon agent. She's dedicated to sharing her knowledge. Okay, she has a huge background that spans from the insider deals, working with buyers and sellers, to investors. She's an expert at converting new prospects and loyal clients. Okay. And the funny thing about Laura is so busy. She's one of those that's just trying to get out of more production so she could lead people like yourselves and lead a team. So Laura, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much sums me up. So I'm at the point in my career where I feel like I'm ready to really kind of pour myself into people, and I love growing agents. I'm kind of just a teacher at heart. And so I hope that everybody gets to a point in their production where they feel like they can't handle it anymore. They need to start leveraging other people for help. And then I hope that by that point, you've learned a lot too, and you just feel compelled to share it. That's kind of what we're all about here with Tanya. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with y'all. And this is part of our series on dominate listings, like she said. So what I've decided to do is kind of change it up a little bit, but not really till the end. I'm going to run quickly through kind of my approach to how I handle my listings and my listing presentations specifically. And then at the end, I'm going to give you kind of my top 5 what not to do. So that way you can get a little bit of insight into how I do it. This year, I think my numbers are going to be a little over 50% of my transactions are going to be through listings, which any of you that are productive realtors, you know that that's a pretty big number. So I remember when I started out in the business, all I just wanted was a listing, right? You just want listings. That's what everybody tells you. Yeah, Dee Dee raised her hand. She knows. It's all about listings whenever you're when you're in the business. And so that's kind of the end all be all. From listings, you do see leads. And so I do understand the importance of it. It's kind of funny though. I kind of personally like buyers more than I like sellers. But the thing that you have to do is you have to get smart and realize that listings are where kind of your biggest ROI is. So it's really important that you learn how to nail your listing presentations when you do have the opportunity to meet sellers. So my goal here is to give you my approach to the listing presentation, and then my kind of big things to avoid. That way you don't screw it all up, right? So has everybody on the call had a listing before? If you've had a listing, raise your hand. Okay, so this is awesome, actually. So for the people that have not had a listing, pay attention and feel free to ask questions. I'm going to probably have some time at the end to answer your questions. Also, I'm happy to talk a little bit about where to get listing leads, or where I get my listing leads, so you have some idea on where to focus your energy so that you can actually have the opportunity to do your own listing presentation. So let me just go ahead and get started. All right, so that was our agenda. I just walked through that. And let me go into a listing presentation. Now, I want to be really clear. My exact presentation, the slides you see, that's not my focus. Anybody can download a listing presentation from Etsy. You can probably get them from your broker. I got this one from my broker originally. I don't honestly remember the exact source of it, but I tweaked it a little bit. Obviously, Canva is your friend if you're not good with Google Slides or PowerPoint, but you can see I put these call outs in the top right-hand corner. That's really kind of what I'm trying to tell you. the general approaches for the slide. I don't have those green call outs on my actual presentation. And then the other thing I do want to also say is I know everyone loves a perfect scripted prescription. A lot of realtors really are looking for that. I'm going to caution you to say, figure out what works best for you. If that means you go into a presentation with a PowerPoint slide deck with 6 slides, or you go into a presentation with your content on paper, you make that your judgment call in your comfort zone. So I actually am completely kind of anti what a lot of people in the industry say is, like, if you're not good at something, let's just spend all of your time and energy focusing on how to get better at the things you suck at. I actually think you should figure out what your strengths are, and let's play up to those strengths. So if the whole concept of bringing a laptop or an iPad in gives you the heebie-jeebies, don't try to put your presentation on a PowerPoint. Bring it on paper. There's nothing wrong with that. So the idea to my approach is I want to go into the meeting with expectations set. So I'm going to lead the conversation, and I'm going to set the expectation for what the appointment is going to go like. Again, I'm not going to go through the details of every slide, but you're going to tell them what you're going to do today. You're going to get to know their house. You're going to get to know them, answer questions. You're going to talk to them a little bit about pricing and talk to them about next steps. You want to share. So from the moment you walk in the door, I don't know if any of you've been on any of my other classes, but I'm kind of a broken record about know, like, and trust. So people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So from the moment you walk into this presentation, you're going to be sharing about yourself, and you're going to be asking questions about them. Don't make it all about countertops and flooring. Make it about people. You're a person, they're people. If they feel like they get to know you, they're going to be more likely to want to do business with you. So don't clam up just because you feel like you're on a job interview. You absolutely are kind of on a job interview. So be professional, but also be friendly and warm. So I will usually start out. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Now, once again, you're gonna tailor this. So if the people already know you somehow, then it's okay to delete this slide from your deck for that particular seller. But if you want to throw up some bullet points, tell them a little bit about yourself. Share your resume.
Are you sharing something? Because we don't see anything.
You're not seeing anything on my whole screen?
Nope. Remember I told you to stop sharing and then stop?
Interrupting me. Hold on.
Sorry. Messed up
No,
your flow. I messed up your flow.
How about this? How about don't be afraid to interrupt and ask questions? That's a really good. Now I'm finding my Zoom. Hold on a minute. We'll do this.
We see your desktop. There we go.
Now you know what I'm talking about. So I'll do a quick rewind.
You're using
that. Does this illuminate things a little bit better?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Good. I love it. Okay, so again, this is my listing presentation. And I will say, I don't use this every time I go into an appointment, but I know it now so well. It's very important, I think, that you use something to start with, and then you decide based on the client and the scenario how formal you need to be. So like I was saying, these green call outs in the right corner, those are just here for today. I don't keep, those aren't there during my presentation, but this is where I was talking about setting expectations. So
and
set
by
an
the way,
agenda.
can I pause you really quick? You got this template from the EXP Marketplace, didn't you?
Probably so. I've had it for so long, I don't even remember.
It looks good. Everybody can get this template.
They can. Yeah, and I'm happy to share it on Canva with you too. It's when I dropped it into Canva, there's a little bit of formatting challenges, but I'm happy to share it. It's not anything top secret. So this was the about me. And then this is the whole concept of sharing your resume. So I do think it's important to put some credentials on the screen. This goes into not only the knowing you, but also trusting you. And by seeing credentials, they're going to trust your capabilities. So one of my tips is to draw from your experience other than real estate. So for you new agents that have never done a listing before, don't be afraid to pull from anything you've done in your past. This slide for me, you can see even that in the 2000s, I worked for a home builder. I'm kind of cheating a little bit because that is relevant to home sales, but my bachelor's of science from University of Houston, and then working in sales consulting, y'all, that was in the IT industry. Like they don't need to know I have sales experience. So I don't care if you worked at Sonic, you were a customer service rep, you were, anything to do with customer facing, build your resume out and make it so that it works for your skill set needed to be their realtor. So I'm going to do, a few slides on about me. It's nice if you highlight some properties that are, especially ones that are in the area or the type of property. When you first start out in this business, before you get super comfortable and confident, I would say it's a very good exercise before every listing appointment you go on to change these slides a little bit to match the client that you're going to visit. Don't ever assume that you can get away with kind of generic. When you start out, you have plenty of time. There's no excuse to use generic slides when you can make these look like they go with the client. So they don't have to be listings. You can actually use buyer sides. It doesn't matter. The point is if you've put real properties on the screen. The other thing that I was taught a long time ago that I've also done is don't be afraid to kind of ride on the coattails of other agents from your brokerage that are in your team, your downline, that are, somebody you've met that's in the local market. As long as you're with your brokerage, you can say we, my team. Here at EXP, I'm in a revenue share group. So I use them as my credential all the time, that I work with a group of 1,000 agents. I don't know every single one of them, but I use it all the time, y'all. I've included some testimonials. I think that's important. And
Can
then
I pause right
Sure.
there?
Sure.
So going back to the team, like when you went back to that one page, the first page, the bio, yeah, look up your team and see what stats your team has. And you can even put a photo of your team in here. This is for like Nayeli and Matt, right? Like she said, like show that this is what we've done as a group.
Right. And if you work directly with a mentor, use their stats too. That person is part of you. So if you get called out, there's not very many sellers that are going to specifically call you out. Most people, humans, aren't comfortable doing that, believe it or not. But if they do question you, at least be prepared with, the team I'm on has, helped buyers and sellers with over 100 transactions this year. If they ask you specifically, there's nothing wrong with saying, I work hand in hand with an agent who's done, and then have their numbers. You're going to have to get a little bit creative when you first start, but don't be afraid to get creative is what I'm saying. You don't have experience till you have experience. So everybody got it somewhere. And then the next thing I do is go into kind of getting to know them. So I usually try to start out with personal questions, more about the process, like why are you moving? Where are you moving to? Where, or what are you planning on buying next? Some of this stuff you may already know. Again, it depends on how you met them and how you got the listing appointment. But the bottom line is this is the part where you're asking them about them personally. You're not going to like straight into tell me about your countertops. Then you're going to get into tell me about your countertops. So then you can ask them in questions about the neighborhood, the house. Why do you like this house? Why would other people like your house? Again, you're just getting them talking. You're getting them talking about themselves. You're asking them questions. They feel like you love them and care about them. That's the most important thing that's going on next. Because at some point, you're going to get to where you do have to be the professional and you do have to be a critic. So you do kind of think about it almost like going on a date. So you're going to sort of date them. So when you get there, you're kind of being nice and warm and chit chatty. And then as you get to know them better, then you can be a little bit more critical. So at some point in the conversation, I don't know if if this is where it goes for you. But what I have here is, when you're done asking them about the property and getting to know you, and then you kind of state your value prop and you state your approach. So I always say, like, this is my signature approach. I'm no nonsense. I will tell you if I'm not a good fit for you or selling your home. I will be honest with you about the pricing of your property. And I will be honest about telling you what could be preventing you from selling, even if it's slightly offensive. And I'll just say, what I need from you in return is, I need you to communicate. I need you to be open with sharing your thoughts and concerns, your fears, your ideas, and your expectations. So I'm going to tell you upfront and honestly about what I think about your house, and I need that back from you. So I taught a class recently that said, so as you walk through their house, I guess putting it in context is, if I say to them, hey, I'm really concerned that people are not going to like your countertops, I need them to be willing to be honest with me and say, well, that really makes me scared because I don't have the money to afford to replace my countertops. So that's kind of what I'm going for there, right? To let them feel comfortable having a true back and forth conversation with you as you do your walkthrough with them and tell them what you think about their house. So next, we're going to walk through their house together. And some people take a checklist. Probably smart. Try to find a checklist for things you can walk through the house, and sometimes that's going to be like an MLS input sheet. So I know our MLS has this like 10-page document you can print out, and you can walk through and note the different features of the home. I would suggest having one of those handy. I don't personally consider this walkthrough all my detailed fact finding for my listing. I really just want this to be give me a tour of your house. I want to see the layout. I want to see what you've done, what you haven't done yet, what you're planning on doing. And then as I go through, I might make some suggestions, but I usually set the expectation that I want to get a handle on what I'm working with. And then I will come back and do a really detailed, when we agree to list, I'm going to come back and do a more detailed detailed kind of analysis of what I need you to do or not do. The other thing that I just said out loud that I think you should really make a note of this is, do the presumptive close. So always say, when I list your home, when we get your home on the market. Okay. Be confident and just assume it's going to be you. Unless they've interviewed other realtors. I want to say, Tanya, you may know the statistic from all the classes you're in, but it's like 90% of people pick the first realtor that they meet or something like that. So just assume it's going to be you, because it's probably going to be. So again, as you're touring the property with them, you're still getting to know them. And then I usually get into a general how price is determined conversation. I explain to them where I get my pricing data from and how I share that with them. One of the things that I do that I'll get to in my what not to do's, and I'll mention it now and then again, is sometimes, again, it depends on the exact kind of dynamics of this particular client. I will actually bring some nearby cells, and I do like to use a computer for it because they can see the pictures better than if you print them out. I will actually, if I know that pricing is going to be a challenging conversation with them because maybe they've already made a comment to me about wanting to list super high, then I'll actually have nearby listings where I can show them pictures, but I usually preface it by saying, I'm going to show you some nearby recent sales, and I want you to look through these and tell me which one you think is most similar to your property. And that starts making them decide what the value is versus me being the bad guy. So explain to them how you're going to determine pricing. I normally do not show up to my listing appointments with a firm I know we're going to list for this amount of money. Totally depends on the listing. If it's rural, if it's a cookie cutter. If it's a cookie cutter, you may have a pretty good idea. But if it's not, you may need to have already set the expectation that I'm going to, I have an idea of what prices in your area are trending. But I need to look at your property in person, and then I need to go away and do some additional analysis before I can come back and give you, a pretty tight price range. And then we'll have a discussion about where our best value, our best number is going to be in the market. So I love this pyramid. If you haven't seen the pyramid, you should use the pyramid. This basically tells them if they start going over fair market value, how many buyers drop out of even seeing their listing. So the higher the price, the less visibility on their listing, and the lower the price, the more visibility on their listing. And then I will explain to them a plan. So what is our plan? What is our approach going to be after today? What do we do next? So here's the process. You meet with me, we establish a price, we prep your home, we list it for sale, we get offers, and yada, yada. Okay. Always give them a plan. That's one of the things that's the most terrifying. I would say you do need to work with your providers, whoever you use for photography. If you are going to use a stager, you need to know what their turnaround times are, so that if the client asks you on the spot, how long until you can get a photographer out here, you can tell them. And that's going to be different for every realtor. So I have these additional resources that I use. I'm not sure if it'll let me click on these when I'm in presentation mode. Let's see. It won't. I usually share this. It's like a 24-page seller's guide that I've created, and I'll tell them, okay, after this meeting, I'm going to send you, a 20-page guide that'll help, walk you through and reiterate some of the things that we've already talked about today. I will work up a net proceeds worksheet for you. And so that should be available to pretty much everyone in their MLS. Sometimes I'll bring a paper copy with me, and I'll leave them a paper copy, but I'll show it to them either on the screen or on paper and say, this is what I'm going to go fill out. And if you want to, depending on the circumstance, you can sit there with them at the countertop, and you can actually work some of the numbers out and ask them what their loan payoff is. And then their homework. So I always leave them with homework, because it's kind of like, again, human psychology is a give and take, right? If you ask them for something in return, sometimes they feel obligated, and you want them to have that feeling of obligation. So I'm going to do all this stuff for you. I need you to do something for me. And this is part of the reason why loan officers, they want the loan application, and they want the people to do all the hard work of sending the docs, because they feel like once they've made those big commitment steps, they're going to get them. It's a real pain in the butt to send all your loan documents in, and it's real hard to do it multiple times. These people, I don't understand why they don't just save them in a folder and then just resend them. But I mean, I've seen it all the time, y'all. Once they start sending their docs to a lender, it can be very difficult for them to go get a second opinion. Same thing here. I'm going to give you a list of documents I need to start getting your listing ready. As soon as you find these, send them to me. And so I give them a 15-item checklist of everything I need. And then how will I market your property? You should have some sort of a plan. I have a printout. So I like my printout because I can put it in front of them and I can walk through it. And it's with a signed listing agreement with me, here are the things you get. And I use this kind of cheesy, I call it like ready, set, go method, where these are the things we do to get your house ready. This is the things we do to get it set right before we list, and then go. Once we're on the market, then these are the things you're going to expect from me. So some examples of that would be, we're getting ready, we're doing repairs, we're doing paint touch-ups. We're going to take pictures. That's going to be getting our MLS listing ready. And then once we're on the market, I'm going to send you weekly market updates. I'm going to, set you up with this really sophisticated showing service with, text message notifications. I know that sounds cheesy when you're a realtor, because that's your everyday life, but you got to remember, especially for people, if they haven't sold a house ever or not in 20 years, showing services weren't around back then. So you want to make sure and use all of that to your, all of that technology to your benefit, even if so I didn't put this in my don'ts, but don't ever assume. So we're going to start with the don'ts now. Don't ever assume that the seller knows something that you think is just every day. Okay. They are not a realtor. These people are not educated in our business. They're not in it every single day. So don't think they know what the showing service is. Don't think they know what a net sheet is. If they've sold 7 houses and they've sold 7 houses, you might assume they know a little bit more, but don't make assumptions about what they know. And then remember too, like if you're the first person and there was going to be another person, perhaps you might wow them with some things that you think are kind of everyday knowledge, but then they didn't know them. And so they're like, oh, well, this person's really got all this technology and everything. Why do we need to even call another realtor? Right. And then the last thing is pretty much just asking for the business. So, you can have your own little spiel, what do we do next? To get started, I'm going to leave here, by the end of the day tomorrow, I'm going to have pricing suggestions for you. I'm going to send you an email with a full CMA report now that I've seen your house. I'm going to answer all your questions. If you have any, when I'm done, you can ask them today, or if you go away and think and have more questions, I can answer those between today and tomorrow. And then we're going to have a little bit of paperwork to complete, and I can have your home on the market in as little as 4 days, or like, let's say they've already told you 3 weeks. I mean, listen, right? Don't just, I can have your home on the market as soon as you're ready for the listing to go live. And then if you agree with my pricing recommendation at that time, would you be willing to sign a listing agreement with me? So some people will say, have the listing agreement with you. You can absolutely do that. Like I used to always carry one in my, like when I was a brand new agent, I was ready to have that damn thing signed, y'all. So just like, you can keep the paper listing agreement in your, in your bag and have it ready to sign if you think that's how this particular client is going to behave. If you think you're ready for that, be ready for it. But at minimum, you need to ask them if they would be willing to sign the agreement with you. Don't be scared to ask that question. Most people are going to say, yeah, I probably would, and then thank you. So I think I'm going really fast. Am I talking too fast?
No, it's great. I mean,
okay,
good. Keeps us
maybe we can start the new trend where we finish meetings on time, because I know I came from corporate America background and meetings were never done on time.
I know mine went over this morning. I'm sorry, you guys.
Well, then I'll give them back some of those minutes in their life probably. Okay, so what are my biggest what not to do's on a listing appointment? Okay, so do not be afraid to share your thoughts about property flaws. So this is a big one. I think a lot of agents are going in there and they think, oh my God, especially newer agents, if I tell them what's wrong with their house, they're not going to like me and they're not going to want to hire me, and it's going to offend them and hurt their feelings. So my little hint here is I always actually say almost these exact words. I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to sell your house. So expect from me honest and direct feedback, and some of it will come across as critical. But I'm really just telling you that based on my experience working with hundreds of buyers and touring thousands of properties with buyers, I know what buyers think. I know what they say about people's houses when they're not there to hear them. I hear all of their comments. So I'm going to give you insider scoop, and I'm going to tell you what buyers are going to say about your house before they're even here. So now they think that you're giving them some kind of secret details, and then they also don't really attribute it to you. They know that you're kind of like grabbing onto other people's opinions and thoughts. And so you kind of depersonalize it, but you still warn them, I'm going to be pretty blunt here. So do not be afraid. I will tell you 1000%, they will respect you and they will love the fact that you're honest. And then that goes back to the know, like, and trust, because now they can trust you because you're not afraid to hurt their feelings. You just want to sell their house, right? Number 2, don't be afraid to give them what they think is a low value. So this is where I say bring comps with photos, ask them which house theirs is most similar to, make them tell you how much their house should be listed for. I've had tons of success with this approach. So again, it depends on the timing. The timing may be at the meeting. The timing may be after the meeting a day later. You've got to pay attention to what the dynamics of this particular lead is and what the situation is as far as how difficult is it to comp their property. But it's really interesting. I usually give a range and I tell them, so even if it's after the fact, so let's do after the fact. After the fact, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go away. I'm going to do these comps. I'm going to send them, we call it a cloud CMA in Houston Association of Realtors. So I do a cloud CMA where they can see pictures of all the comps. I don't just send a simple single line item CMA. I send them where they can see the details, because I want them, hey, my recommended price range based on the comps I'm attaching is 350 to 380. Please take a look at these pictures. Think about your house in perspective with these other houses and tell me where you think your value should fall. And you'd be surprised. They'll actually be pretty realistic. If you just ask them, what do you think, or what do you want for your house? They're always going to say something crazy like 450. And you're like, God help me, right? Because how do you counter that? How do you, it's almost like when you're arguing with somebody who's just kind of throwing random crap into the conversation and there's like nothing factual behind it. It's really hard to argue with an idiot. And so in this case, you're kind of setting yourself up for the same thing. They are not basing their opinion on facts and data, and that's what you have. So present them with the facts and data and then let them tell you where they fall within that range of what you consider normal. Okay, don't be hesitant to share and to really get to know them. So again, I emphasize that a lot. I think a lot of people are worried about, kind of letting their guard down, being personal, getting to know people. You're in their house, you are a professional, but you're also in their house, and that's a personal place to be. It's not the same thing as having a meeting with somebody at a business office. So don't be afraid to talk about yourself. If you see something in their house that, they have a dog that reminds you of your dog, be personable and be friendly. And I know that's a big ask for some people, depending on what their their disc style is or disc profile. If you're more of an introvert than an extrovert, but the bottom line is you do need to be warm and friendly. So practice getting comfortable with people. If you're not, then you need to practice it every single day. And I don't care if that's on strangers at the nail salon. Get comfortable talking to people a little bit about your life and letting them see who you are. Don't be afraid to toot your own horn. So you are your own biggest fan. You need to tell them how good you are, and you need to do it with confidence. So in that meeting, is there going to be anybody else there with you to back up or explain or express that you're capable of the job? There's not going to be anyone else there. They're never going to call anybody and ask them, hey, is this man good at this job? If you don't have reviews online, y'all, you don't have anything but your own word of mouth. So be your own word of mouth. I don't care what you have to say. I don't care if you have to say, whenever I was in sales before, when I was in my previous career, I used my previous career all the time when I started. I got the employee of the month 3 times. Come up with something. You need to have it ready and you need to have it documented. So if you need to make notes and you need to spend, an hour with yourself, writing your own value proposition, and you haven't done something like that, let that be one of your end of the year before next year exercises. A lot of people don't stop to do something like that. Once you become a realtor, you don't really think about ever needing a resume again. You need a resume as a realtor. And that resume is going to gather on all of the skills from your past. And so think about it like you were putting together a resume for a quote unquote regular job, even though it's a completely different type of career. And don't be afraid to say those things whenever you're in the presence of customers. Now, you can be a kind of an egotistical narcissist about it. I don't really recommend that, but I do recommend being comfortable, confidently sharing your accomplishments, or even if it's something small, something that you're familiar with. If you've lived in a neighborhood similar to theirs, if your best friend lived there and you spent, 75 hours a week hanging out in that neighborhood, so you know it really well. Grab onto things that that make you the person for that job and say them out loud. And then the last don't allow them to lead the conversation. So this goes back to kind of setting the stage with your itinerary and your goals for the meeting before the meeting starts. So come into it telling them what's going to happen today while you're there. And this is really important about things like pricing. If you're not ready to have the pricing conversation, which it's okay not to be ready to have the pricing conversation. I can't tell you, even as an experienced agent, not that long ago, it was like 3 days ago, I have a really good relationship with these clients. They weren't doing it to put me on the spot, but I went to go look at their house after talking about it with them for weeks. And they looked, and I'd already told them that, hey, I'm going to come look at your house. I'm just going to come to your house quickly tonight because everyone had plans later that evening. It was on Sunday. And I said, I'm going to do a walkthrough of your house. You know, you might want to be making an offer on another house. The whole goal of my meeting is just to make sure that we could get ready to list quickly if you decide to make an offer on this other house, and know that we can get on the market quickly enough. I'm not going to talk to you about anything else. And then, of course, well, what do you think? Do you think we could get over 500 for it? And I looked at him and I said, I don't know the answer to that question. I did not come prepared for that. Now that I've seen your house, I'll go away and do the proper research so I can give you an educated answer to that question. I didn't sit there and try to make something up. I didn't want to appease him by just saying, sure, we can get 500 for it. I didn't know the answer, so I told him I didn't know the answer. But again, I kind of went back to, I'm in charge of the conversation. You don't get to kind of tell me what to do. So that's probably one of your biggest things you can do from the minute that you start talking to a person about a listing appointment, is setting the expectation for what you're comfortable doing and delivering at the different stages of your interactions with them. And if you feel comfortable showing up with comps and giving them a value, it's really easy to do with newer houses that are only a few years old that are in cookie cutter neighborhoods. But if you don't feel that that's something you can do, then let them know that you're not planning on doing that whenever you come to see their house. And that's it. What? So if anybody has any questions, comments?
Yeah, who has questions, you guys? That's a lot. You know, a lot of people didn't talk about the do nots. Okay, who has questions here?
I have a question.
Sure.
It's Angela. I'm sorry. Hi, Laura. It's Angela. I'm driving, so I didn't want to like turn my camera on and try and.
Sure.
I can multifunction, just not very well some days. So my question is, the last listing appointment that I had, it was actually a double listing appointment. The husband and the wife each had a house that they needed me to sell, and I did end up getting both listing agreements signed, but I offered out of the gate to not take a full 3% commission because they were entrusting me with multiple transactions, which of course they were very grateful for. But I had to go out of my way to make a slide in my presentation to explain why they had to pay the buyer's side of the commission, and why I had to explain like the 6% standard, the 3% split. Like I had to go into all of that. And I was just curious if that is a part of your presentation, or what your response is when sellers ask that, because I'm learning that it's a common question, and especially with everything that's going on right now with all the trials and everything.
So did they ask you that up front, and that's why you knew you needed to cover it so heavily, or did you decide to do that because you thought it would come up?
No, they asked me because they they knew about commission, but they didn't know what the amounts were. They asked me what is the standard is what they said. And so I tried to give a broad explanation of it. But the wife is an accountant or some sort of finance manager or something. And so she wanted more of a breakdown that was more like relative like to numbers. And so I had to work up this whole thing like, well, if we sold your house for this amount, my commission would be this percentage, the buyer's commission would be this percentage. And I mean, I had to give her, an example so she could understand, but I just didn't know if you ever had to go into that much detail as far as like the commission stuff goes, because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I have, when they ask me the question, and especially when you're drafting a listing agreement or they ask you how much commission do you charge, I will typically say I charge what's standard in the market, which is 6%. Then if they go into detail about or ask questions about how that breaks down, or the buyer's side, to me, the simple answer that always works is, again, in our market, it's different in every market, but in our market, it's customary for the seller to pay the 6% commission. And then I split half of that with the buyer's agent for bringing us a buyer. So it's their compensation for bringing a buyer to the listing. That's how I was taught to word it, and that's how I've always worded it. And I typically don't have anyone argue back with me. Obviously we've had change, and I will say that I do say, if I'm going to offer a listing discount, which I typically only offer discounts if I'm helping them purchase too. And that's agent specific. You know, there have been times where and it's also client specific. There have been times where I haven't discounted. In times when I do, there are a lot of agents in the industry that they basically gasp at the concept of you're offering a discount. Why would you ever discount your services? I think that we don't want to be discount low fee agents. So you do have to hold yourself to a higher standard, and you have to offer higher level services so that you don't feel a single qualm about charging what you charge. So you've got to go back to doing it with confidence, right? But I will always say that if I offer you a discount, I never recommend discounting the buyer side of the commission and what you're offering for them bringing you your future buyer, because we want every agent to be excited about bringing a buyer to your listing. And so that's kind of the script that I think we hear a lot in the business now. With the change in the industry, I kind of have a pretty blunt attitude about it right now. I'm not changing how I do business until someone tells me I need to. Until something legal happens, because I come, and I think I have a special background when it comes to this issue, because I come from a business consulting background. And so consultants are paid such a wide range by not only their employers, but by their customers, depending on how they're compensated. And I can tell you that I feel the same way about realtors, and I'm a consultant. And what I charge should be equal to what my worth is in the marketplace. And I know firmly where my worth is in this marketplace compared to other consultants doing the same job as I'm doing. So I'm going to keep firm to, this is what I charge. This is what is most commonly seen in the marketplace. And based on my experience and based on my expertise, based on the outcomes of my performance, you can see how many transactions I've closed over the last 5 years, my icon awards. There's no doubt that I'm worth the top of the market. And I mean that's how I present my value and how I hold my own value in, like, inside of myself, because it's got to start from within you, where you're worth it, so that when you have to explain it to people, they believe you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But I would say don't change how we do business. I mean, that's my biggest thing to agents. I'm like, why are we preempting the way we get paid before the industry, the laws? If our brokers aren't telling us we have to change the way we get paid, don't do it yet, because I'm not going to preemptively devalue my services just because I'm scared of a lawsuit. I'm not going to start that process for everybody and make it easier to devalue what we do as realtors.
I'm with you, girl.
Yeah. So anybody else? Oh, wait, Tanya, you're on mute.
Yeah, and never assume, you guys don't know, just because what you see on the national news doesn't mean it's getting passed in your state, right?
Yep.
So just focus on doing your job, focus on showing your value proposition. Even if you want to, start building a buyer presentation. Where Laura got her listing presentation in the eXp marketplace, there is a buyer presentation. Start building that buyer presentation, so when someone says, how do you get paid and why am I paying you? You go, here it is. And they're like, okay, great, right? But you start trying to explain this whole lawsuit and stuff. No, your job is to show your value.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, Alice had a question.
Sure.
No, I don't have a question. It must have been an accident. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
So has anybody that's new that's never done a listing, have you ever done a mock listing appointment? Totally.
I kind of have.
Okay.
And they were negotiating me because it's church, so they wanted me to do it for 1%. And they didn't want to pay the buyer side either. So I kind of asked, we need to pay them to bring the buyer here. If we're not paying them, they may not bring it, we may not have any buyers.
So I mean, I think that's the right answer. I think that the thing about the buyer side commission too that's interesting is most of these people have bought houses before.
Yes.
So a kind of a tongue in cheek, again, it depends on how serious the client is whenever they're kind of, if they're questioning that concept of paying the buyer's agent, I'll say it's sort of the circle of life in real estate. And I'll say, well, so I'm selling your house. So you purchased this house. Did you pay your real estate agent, or was it part of the listing commission that the seller compensated your agent for bringing you to purchase their house? And they're like, oh, okay. Now, again, we have to be careful. I mean, I'm definitely not changing my way of speaking until the law tells me to. I am following the news. I think everybody should follow the news because I think that's an intelligent thing to do when you're in an industry. But I usually just kind of explain it as the circle of life. You're marketing your product, and the buyer is the consumer of your product. But ultimately, the listing commission is all about marketing your product for sale to get the highest value we can, the quickest we can. And that's how I explain that. So anyway, back to the mock listing appointment. I think that if you can find somebody, whether it's your mentor or a friend that has listed a few houses, I would totally recommend at least doing some role playing with a listing appointment. And that might actually mean physically going to their house or having them come to your house, or even you could go to a salesperson at a model home and ask them for the keys to one of their inventory houses and go do a listing appointment at an inventory home for a builder. But get your listing presentation ready. Do not wait to have it ready until you get a listing appointment. Start it now.
Agreed. Yeah, guys, that is what you should be doing in this downtime. Your listing presentations, your buyer presentation, right? Getting your newsletters dialed in, go in there and upload the newsletters and just pop your photo in. Your face and everything's already there. Like, these are the things you should be doing is getting your systems down.
Yeah.
Tanya, I have a question, Laura. When you do the listing presentations, the actual paper or the template, do you put the pictures of the actual house, or do you use other homes? Because I have mine made up, but I don't print them because, well, you don't use print up when printing. I'm sorry, you don't use hard copy when you present, right? And then somebody.
I have in the past. So depending on the client, you might, if they're not tech savvy, or it just depends on your client, on you, on your situation. If you obviously have a ton of graphics on the slides, it's going to be not very fun to print those out every time, especially if you make it like 25 pages long. I can also tell you, err on the side of less information is more. That's another thing I got myself into when I first started. I've deleted so many slides out of my listing presentation because it got too much. And it's just sort of gets monotonous with the customer. It's best if you can use like the Apple approach. So Steve Jobs came out with his presentations years ago where it was just like one word on the screen, y'all. I'm not saying you can do it with one word, but less is more. You should be able to explain what you're presenting, and you don't necessarily need to have paragraphs on 75 slides. So did I even answer your question? Your question was,
I'm sorry, do you use photos of the home that you're presenting?
No.
Okay.
So you're not going to have, you could find old listing pictures, or you could find like a Google Street View of the house you're going to, but I've personally never done that. Oh, I do. Another tip for you though, is when you're on the listing appointment, ask them if they're comfortable with you snapping some photos that are not going to be used for anything. They're just for your memory. Y'all, it is hard to remember what you saw sometimes. Take some pictures. Take pictures. Trust me.
Thank
Just trust
you.
me. Yeah.
Do you tell them that you're using them as like recall photos or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that?
I
or
just say it's just for my
reference?
memory. Right. I will never share these. These are not your listing photos, but it's just because I'm on the run a lot and I need to be able to stimulate my memory later on.
I love it.
I have one more question. Sorry. And I think I've heard this before. I don't know. I just want to know what you do when they ask you, when you say, well, we're going to take professional photos. Do you ask them permission, and how do you discuss how those are paid for? Like services like
So
that, photos and staging.
those are included when I say what you get with my list with a listing with me. You get professional photos, and I mean I guess I don't normally have to call it out specifically. They understand that that's part of what I'm paying for, but I just say that's included in my listing commission. That's included in my fee. So
Thank you.
yep.
Love
And
it.
you know what? My last piece of advice, I think, if does anyone else have any questions? No. So my last biggest thing, I think, to put my feet back in the shoes of a newer agent is every single buyer prospect that you have right now, or every buyer that you've worked with, because again, that's normally where most agents start. Those are your future sellers, y'all. So please, please, please nurture them. I promise you it works. You can cold call for listings, you can door knock for listings, you can do all of the different tactics that are out there, but I promise you the one place that is guaranteed that you will have listings is going to be from your buyers. So you have to have a plan in place to nurture them and keep in touch. You have to wow them with the whole process getting to closing when they're buying. You have to ask them for referrals, ask them for future business. Don't be afraid, and just know that those people are going to turn into your sellers. So don't ever get discouraged that you're not going to have listings, because I promise you, if you have buyers, you will have listings.
I love it. Such great advice. So you guys nail your listing presentation. She said from the beginning, use the presumptive close. Okay. Use the tips on what not to do at the listing. All right. Go in with confidence, know your value, know your scripts. Okay. Know your market. All right. So Laura, thank you so much. This was so good. You guys, I'll send you guys the recording for those of you that want to watch it again. And then Laura, if you're still open to it, love if you would send the listing presentation in Canva, and then at least then they'll have something to work off of as well. You guys all have this listing presentation, just not the way she did it. And what's different about Laura's, do you guys see how simple it is? Right? Like Tracy's is very detailed, and some of them are very detailed. Like this is just a guide. Okay. Just a guide. So, all right. Well, thank you, Laura. And we appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
For having
Laura.
me. Yeah.
I like
Bye,
the lessons
everybody.
more.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks,
y'all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tanya. Bye, everybody.